Chapter 284. The dragon-slaying demon blade in Yi Li's hands. Xiao Xiao clenched his teeth tightly, his fists clenched, and his fingernails dug into his skin without him feeling any pain. Yi Li, it was you who killed my son. Xiao Xiao enunciated each word slowly and sternly. Yes, didn't I just say that? Yi Li replied indifferently. Instantly, the atmosphere became extremely tense. Box novel. Calm big brother, what should we do? Tian, the third leader of the Sky Eagle organization, looked at Zishan and asked. Before Zishan could answer, Jiang Feng spoke up. What should we do? Can't you see that Qiong'er is by his side? Nonsense. Zishan scolded him. Can't you see that Demon King Yi Li is helping our Sky Eagle organization? He could have simply walked away after killing Zhao Yang. But not only did he not do that, he even admitted it to Xiao Xiao. Later, if the Skeleton Undead Clan and the Fire-Worshipping Sect make a move against Demon King Yi Li, all the genetic warriors of our Sky Eagle organization will leave the city to assist Demon King Yi Li. Jiang Feng and Tian looked at each other, realizing that what Zishan said made perfect sense. Yi Li, now that you've admitted to killing my son, you must pay with your life. Xiao Xiao roared. Kill him. Kill him. Not only Xiao Xiao, but the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead also gave tears to the heavy sword-wielding undead and the zombies. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead felt that Yi Li's existence was too terrifying. If he wasn't eliminated, there might not be a place for the dark race in the entire wilderness northern region. In an instant, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan, the zombie horde, and the genetic warriors of the fire-worshipping sect all attacked Yi Li. All genetic warriors of the Sky Eagle organization obey tears. Leave the city and fight against these bastards from the dark race and the fire-worshipping sect. With Zishan's command, the gate of the Sky Eagle base swung open, and countless genetic warriors rushed out. Senior Demon King, what should we do? Ziqiong was so terrified that she had lost her wits. With so many dark race members, zombies, and fire-worshipping sect genetic warriors charging towards them, the situation was incredibly terrifying. Yi Li's face remained unmoved, and he smiled wickedly. He had already activated the 3rd tier of the ancient devil tome. In an instant, demonic aura enveloped the area, and the once bright sky became densely clouded. Yi Li's hair floated in the windless air as he retrieved the dragon-slaying demon blade from his system space. Aowu! A dragon's roar echoed as the phantom of a 5-clawed blood dragon circled in the sky. Immediately afterward, horrifying sounds of a blade rang out. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at the blade in Yi Li's hand and exclaimed, The dragon-slaying blade! Dragon-slaying blade! As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Xiao, the fire-worshipping sect's 2 elders and 9 guardians, Zishan, Jiang Feng, Tian, and the 10 Sky Eagle organization elders were all shocked. They had naturally heard of the dragon-slaying blade, one of the 10 great divine weapons. Legend had it that once all the 10 great divine weapons were gathered, they could reveal a staggering secret. They could never have imagined that the Demon King Yi Li would possess the dragon-slaying blade. Demonic aura surrounded Yi Li, and he leaped into the air with a single step. Primordial Demon Slash. As the words fell, the blade fell. 3,000 godly and demonic phantoms attacked fiercely. Boom! Immediately, the earth shook, the heavens changed color, and a deafening explosion echoed. After the explosion, it was unknown how many casualties the dark race, zombies, and fire-worshipping sect had suffered. Chapter 285. Seizing the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. Is this the power of the dragon-slaying blade? Even though the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had no eyes, a greedy expression crossed its face. One of the 10 great divine weapons was truly awe-inspiring. Seize the dragon-slaying blade from Yi Li. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead coldly ordered. Immediately, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and the zombies continued their frenzied assault on Yi Li. Box novel. The fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors were currently locked in the fierce battle with the Sky Eagle organization. Yi Li watched as the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and the zombies approached him, shaking his head inwardly. Wasn't life precious to them at all? Since they wanted to die, Yili could only grant their wish. Yili took the heavenly tower out of his system space. He held the blade with his right hand, and held the tower with his left hand. The 7-layered heavenly tower appeared in Yili's hand. It was quaint and pitch black, exuding a solemn aura. Just as the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and the zombies were about to attack, Yili tossed the heavenly tower into the air. The heavenly tower rapidly expanded in midair, reaching hundreds of yards in size, completely enveloping the sky. Yili enunciated each word slowly. Purgatory suppression. Suddenly, countless terrifying lightning bolts appeared at the base of the tower and shot downwards. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion erupted, but it was far from over. After the countless terrifying lightning bolts had struck, the heavenly tower suddenly descended. This time, the casualties of the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and the zombie horde were even greater than before. What is this? The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was dumbfounded as it stared at the 7-layered black tower on the ground. Heavenly tower. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead exclaimed. What? Once these words were spoken, everyone was frozen in place, as if they had turned into statues. The heavenly tower, one of the 10 great divine weapons? They couldn't believe it. They really couldn't believe it. But what else could this tower be, besides the heavenly tower, one of the 10 great divine weapons? They would rather believe that they only had 1 second to live than believe that Yili not only had the dragon-slaying blade, but also the heavenly tower. Who exactly was the demon king? Yili? Yili! I didn't expect you to possess both the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili in amazement. Yili smiled. He didn't answer the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead's question, but silently opened the points store and spent tens of thousands of points to purchase 2 weapon replication opportunities. He replicated fake versions of the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. This move was not the first time he had used it, but it never got old. After placing the real dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower into his system space, Yili looked at the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and said calmly, I, Yili, know that one will die here today. But before one die, I want to enjoy watching 2 tigers fight. With those words, Yili threw the fake dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower to a vacant area. Hurry, seize the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead shouted. Immediately, the remaining heavy sword-wielding undead and the zombies began to rush towards the location of the fake dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. Quickly, take the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. Zhao Xiao also hurriedly shouted. The fire-worshipping sect's genetic warriors snapped out of their daze and rushed towards them as well. We must not allow the dark race and the fire-worshipping sect to get their hands on the 2 divine weapons. Zishan shouted. With that, the members of the Sky Eagle organization also pounced on them. Chapter 286. The dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower are fake. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan, the fire-worshipping sect, and the Sky Eagle organization began a frenzied struggle to seize the fake dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. Initially, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and the fire-worshipping sect had formed an alliance, but now they couldn't help but fight each other. As the saying goes, there are no permanent friends, only permanent interests. The dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower were both among the 10 great divine weapons, and obtaining such divine artifacts would be a tremendous stroke of luck. Who cared about friendship at a time like this? The heavy sword-wielding undead clan, the fire-worshipping sect, and the Sky Eagle organization engaged in a fierce battle, all striving to reach the fake dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower not far from them. Box novel. Unfortunately, they could never have imagined that the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower, not far from them, were fake. During this time, Yili began frantically synthesizing zombies. There were more than 30,000 zombies, and these weren't ordinary level 1 zombies. His hand speed had reached an incredible tier. By synthesizing all of these more than 30,000 zombies, he could greatly enhance the overall strength of the Apocalypse Legion. Ding! Alda upgraded to a 9th tier zombie. By Wawa upgraded to 9th tier zombies. Hongya upgraded to a 9th tier zombie. After Yili synthesized over 30,000 zombies, Ada, Bai Wawa, and Hongya all became 9th tier zombies. Now Yili had 3 9th tier zombies, which could change the situation dramatically. Ada, Bai Wawa, and Hongya's eyes had turned purple gold, making them look quite impressive. Just then, a burst of maniacal laughter echoed in Yili's ears. It was laughter from the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Yili followed the sound, and saw that the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had the fake dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower in its hands. It stood on a giant eagle, laughing heartily in mid-air. I never expected that in my lifetime one would actually obtain 2 divine weapons. Ha ha ha. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead swore that it had never been this happy before. Zishan and Zhao Xiao, seeing that the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower had already been seized, were filled with unwillingness, but had no choice but to stare resentfully at the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead in the sky. I'd really like to know what you're laughing about. Yili's calm voice suddenly reached everyone's ears. Everyone turned to look at Yili, their faces filled with confusion. They couldn't understand why Yili said these words. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had just obtained the heavenly tower. Shouldn't it laugh? Yili, now both of your divine weapons are in my hands. Why would I not be laughing? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead looked at Yili with extreme disdain. 2 divine weapons? Yili looked puzzled. Aren't the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower 2 divine weapons? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead sneered coldly. Yili smiled and pondered for a moment before saying, "What if the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower in your hands are fake?" What? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was shocked and stared at Yili in disbelief. They couldn't believe that Yili had actually said such a thing. What did you say? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili, but Yili just smiled and said, "I knew you wouldn't believe me, so I'll show you the real ones." With that, Yili took out the real dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower from his system space. He held the blade in his right hand and the tower in his left. On the dragon-slaying blade, a cold light gleamed, and the dragon radiance reached the heavens. On the heavenly tower, black mists billowed, suppressing the heavens. Chapter 287. The horror of the Apocalypse Legion. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead had initially doubted Yili's words, but when he saw the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower in Yili's hands, he finally believed it. He finally believed that the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower in his hands were fake. Zishan and the Sky Eagle organization's genetic warriors couldn't help but secretly admire Yili because they thought he was exceptionally clever. Zhao Xiao's expression, on the other hand, turned cold. To seize the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower, he had fallen out with the heavy sword-wielding undead clan. Now that he knew the heavenly tower and dragon-slaying blade were fake, he had lost everything. Box novel. Calm. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili angrily. "Yili, how dare you deceive me? Even if one deceive you, what can you do?" Yili replied calmly. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was furious, and his anger rose to the sky. "Yili, I want you dead." The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead shouted coldly, "Kill Yili." With that command, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan charged at Yili. However, the current Apocalypse Legion was no longer the same as before. Ada, Bai Wawa, and Hongya had all become 9th tier zombies. Even if the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead and Zhao Xiao joined forces, they were only 2 9th tier beings. The difference between the 8th tier and 9th tier was like the difference between earth and sky. "Kill them all, leave none behind," Yili said calmly. With Yili's command, the 6 zombies of the Apocalypse Legion flew towards the heavy sword-wielding undead clan at a speed akin to a hurricane. The 9th tier God Fist zombie Alda unleashed the earth-shattering fist, together with the natural attacks of wind, rain, lightning and thunder. The 9th tier Ironfoot zombie, Bai Wawa's Qilin foot swept through, leaving a river of blood in its wake. The 9th tier Frost zombie Hongya released her Frost Chi, causing snow to dance in the sky, and turning the heavy sword-wielding undead into ice sculptures. The 8th tier petrification zombie Yutong used her petrification ability to unleash light energy attacks, which were extremely terrifying. The 8th tier ghost sword zombie swordsman All-Chi wielded his death-dealing triple ghost sword, with sword energy spanning a distance of thousands of miles, leaving behind an icy chill. The 7th tier devouring zombie Bone Maiden released her devouring and greater devouring abilities, swallowing countless heavy sword-wielding undead with the black vortex in her palm. With this lineup, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan had no chance of resisting. A lie! Countless screams echoed, and the scene became unbearable to witness. However, Yi Li's expression remained unchanged, as if he had only witnessed something insignificant. At this moment, the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead finally saw the eyes of Alda, by Wawa and Hongya. Purple and gold. And 9th tier zombies? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was so frightened that his soul seemed to leave his body. He couldn't even dream that there would be 3 9th tier zombies in Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion. By the way, where did those more than 30,000 zombies go? The Sky Eagle organization and the fire-worshipping sect also noticed this and were shocked. They were all staring in disbelief at what was happening before them. The Demon King, Yi Li. Until now, they finally understood what kind of existence the Demon King Yi Li was. Ziqiang looked at Yi Li's face in shock, and for some reason, she felt that Senior Demon King was too terrifying. Yi Li smiled faintly, thinking, "I've advised you not to provoke me. Now where can you escape?" The heavy sword-wielding undead weren't zombies, they had intelligence. They knew it was impossible for them to defeat these 6 terrifying zombies, so they began a frantic retreat. Chapter 288. Do you even deserve to die together with me? The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was horrified by the situation, and knew that Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion were unbeatable. Retreat! The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead shouted, and hurriedly led the remaining heavy sword-wielding undead clan to flee madly. Their speed had reached an all-time high. When the heavy sword-wielding undead clan had fled the scene, the fire-worshipping sect's leader, Zhao Xiao, finally reacted. His entire body trembled violently. 3 9th tier zombies. Those were 3 9th tier zombies. Box novel. Kam and Yi Li had the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. What was he to do? Zhao Xiao wanted to escape. He really wanted to escape. However, the fire-worshipping sect members were already surrounded by the Sky Eagle organization. Zhao Xiao was confident he could break free from the Sky Eagle organization's encirclement. But when it came to Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion, he had no confidence at all. Yi Li walked slowly towards Zishan, looking at Zhao Xiao with indifference. Avenging your son is only natural, but unfortunately, your strength is insufficient, so you can only die, Yi Li said slowly. When these words were heard, the fire-worshipping sect's members were all shocked and horrified. Yi Li, you've already killed my son. What more do you want? Zhao Xiao stared at Yi Li. As the leader of the fire-worshipping sect, Zhao Xiao naturally did not want to die, even though the person before him had killed his son. Survival in the wilderness zone was already challenging enough, and sometimes, human nature was a powerful motivator for self-preservation. Yi Li smiled faintly. Originally, one could have spared your life, but after I went to the Falling Rock Mountain Range, one had no choice but to kill you. Zhao Xiao was taken aback by Yi Li's words. He couldn't understand what Yi Li meant. What do you mean? Zhao Xiao asked, staring at Yi Li. With a serene face, Yi Li took several seconds before he spoke slowly. Zhao Xiao, do you recognize her? With that, Yi Li had Bone Maiden walk over. Zhao Xiao was stunned for a moment when he saw Bone Maiden, and then his pupils rapidly contracted. How is this possible? Zhao Xiao was now in a state of shock beyond imagination. Bone Maiden? Bone Maiden had previously been one of the guardians of the fire-worshipping sect. And hearing Zhao Xiao's words, the fire-worshipping sect's members were all shocked. It was no secret in the fire-worshipping sect that Zhao Xiao refined the Bone Maiden into a zombie and gave her to the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. But they would never have dreamed that Bone Maiden would now appear at Yi Li's side. And it seemed that Yi Li had gained control over her. Zishan and the Sky Eagle organization members did not understand what was going on. They were watching this scene with confusion. Yili ignored the perplexity on the faces of the Sky Eagle organization members and looked at Zhao Xiao. Zhao Xiao, do you now understand why I had to kill you? Zhao Xiao of course understood. The Demon King Yili was seeking revenge for Bone Maiden. Demon King Yili, although you and your Apocalypse Legion are powerful, my fire-worshipping sect is not to be trifled with. We'll all die together if need be. Zhao Xiao knew that Yili would not spare him, so he could only use the threat of mutual destruction to make Yili back down. Unfortunately, his plan was utterly wrong. Yili smiled faintly and said to Zhao Xiao, "Do you even deserve to die together with me?" Chapter 289. The downfall of the fire-worshipping sect. Yili looked at Bone Maiden and slowly spoke. I, Yili, have always kept my word. Now I'll avenge you. With that, Yili looked at Zhao Xiao again. Are you ready? Zhao Xiao's expression turned incredibly grim upon hearing this. He knew that Yili was preparing to make a move. Yili, I'll say it again. You and your Apocalypse Legion are powerful, but my fire-worshipping sect is no pushover. Zhao Xiao stared at Yili, his gaze unwavering. Yili shook his head slightly. In the vast post-apocalyptic continent, the wilderness northern region zone was just a small area. Box novel. How could Zhao Xiao know how vast the world truly was? Yili looked at Zhao Xiao indifferently. Since you're not a pushover, I'll let you taste something else today. Zhao Xiao hurriedly asked. Taste what? Yili pondered for a few seconds, then looked up at the sky and down at the ground before slowly saying, Taste death. With that, Yili's hand held an extraordinary demonic blade. He leaped into the air and shouted, Primordial Demon Slash. 3,000 god and demon figures flew forth, their power akin to a nuclear explosion. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion resounded on the ground. The genetic warriors of the fire-worshipping sect had no idea how many casualties they suffered. The scene was simply unbearable to witness. At the same time, the 6 zombies from the Apocalypse Legion leaped into action. Ada by Wawa, Hong Ye Yutong, Swordmaster Achi and Bone Maiden. Zhao Xiao was thunderstruck when he saw this. He had thought that he could engage in a life-or-death struggle with Demon King Yili and the Apocalypse Legion. Now he realized that not only was he wrong, but he was also completely mistaken. Zhao Xiao was a 9th-tier evolved being, but Ada, by Wawa and Hongya were also 9th-tier zombies. Even if a 9th-tier evolved being used all his strength, it would be impossible to defeat 3 9th-tier zombies. Ada by Wawa and Hongya surrounded Zhao Xiao. This was a fight that he couldn't win. Zhao Xiao's pupils contracted rapidly, and he felt like the sky was falling. My life is over. Zhao Xiao shouted loudly, and was struck hard by a punch from Ada. Zhao Xiao's eyes were wide open, unable to believe that he, a 9th-tier evolved being, and the leader of the fire-worshipping sect, had died in this way. As for the fire-worshipping sect's 2 elders, 9 guardians and other members, they had long been annihilated by Yutong, Swordsman Achi, Bone Maiden, and the Sky Eagle organization members. At this moment, the fire-worshipping sect, a powerhouse in the wilderness northern region zone, had disappeared. Yet, Yili showed no signs of emotion, as if he were doing something insignificant. He placed the Apocalypse Legion into the system space. The sudden disappearance of the 6 powerful zombies stunned not only the members of the Sky Eagle organization, but also their leader, Zishan. If before, he believed that he could suppress Yili in the realm, now it was absolutely impossible. Jiang Feng, the second leader of the Sky Eagle organization, was both shocked and terrified. When Yili arrived at the Sky Eagle base, he had been the most arrogant. Now he realized that Yili was an entirely different level of existence. Tianyi too was filled with fear. When he was outside the flame base, he had thought that he could defeat the Ironfoot zombie. Now it seemed that he had been overestimating himself. Mr. Yi, thank you, Zishan said with clasped hands as he looked at Yili. Yili smiled and replied, I was just avenging Bone Maiden. There's no need for thanks. Chapter 290. A wonderful night. Zishan had never seen or heard of anyone like Yili before. Mr. Yi, Would you be willing to stay at the Sky Eagle base for a few days? Zishan's tone became respectful. After thinking for a moment, Yili realized he was a bit tired from these past few days. A rest would do him good. Soon, he followed Zishan to the Sky Eagle base. Upon arriving, Zishan quickly had a feast prepared, with a lavish spread of dishes appearing before Yili Bok's novel. There were birds from the sky, beasts from the land, seafood from the ocean, and crabs from the river. Everything was prepared and cooked to perfection. Several bottles of expensive red wine were placed in front of Yili. "Mr. Yi, please enjoy." Zishan gestured hospitably. Yili picked up his chopsticks and tasted the food, finding it quite delicious. He always ate faster than others. He remembered when he was a child, he had been captivated by martial arts novels and often fantasized about being a swordsman. One day he had a dream. In that dream, he had eaten for the first time in 3 days. He devoured 3 buns in a row. Of course, he ate quickly, even wolfishly. The difference between a swordsman and an ordinary person was that a swordsman was skilled with a blade, not skilled at enduring hunger. After eating those 3 buns, he could go without food for another 3 days and nights. If someone were to ask him why he didn't save 1 bun to eat later, when he got hungry, he would say that doing so would make him look more like a beggar than a swordsman. Since that dream, Yili had always eaten quickly, just like how he killed people. When he killed, many people couldn't even see his blade before they died. When he ate, many people couldn't see him using his chopsticks. He had already finished eating. Zishan and the core members of the Sky Eagle organization exchanged glances. They knew Yili's strength was formidable, but they had never imagined that he could eat so quickly. After the meal, Zishan arranged a luxurious room for Yili. This room was exceptionally extravagant. In the wilderness, being able to stay in such a room was akin to enjoying the treatment of an emperor. Yili released Bone Maiden and wanted to see how she felt now that he had avenged her. "Master," Bone Maiden said respectfully as she greeted Yili. "Bone Maiden, I have avenged you. Are you sincerely willing to follow me now?" Yili looked at her. In truth, Yili was asking more out of curiosity. Composite zombies were completely obedient to Yili's commands, but he wanted to hear Bone Maiden's response. "Master, I am extremely loyal to you. You've avenged me, but one don't know how to repay you," she replied respectfully. Yili smiled faintly. "Since you feel there's no way to repay this favor, how about giving yourself to me?" "Yes, master," Bone Maiden nodded heavily. Actually, Yili was just joking. However, ever since Bone Maiden had put on the misty floral dress, her face was stunningly beautiful. While she was a zombie, 7th-tier zombies were already almost indistinguishable from humans, so it didn't matter. The moon outside the window was exceptionally large, and stars adorned the night sky. It was a wonderful night. Skipping an hour, ding, zombie treasure chest X6. The system's notification sounded in Yili's mind as scheduled. Without much thought, Yili opened the zombie treasure chests with a single click. Obtained Ghost Sword 13 styles. Obtained upgrade points X5. Chapter 291. Returning to the Falling Rock Mountain Range Ghost Sword 13 styles. And level skill. An upgraded version of the death-dealing triple ghost sword. When upgraded to S level, it transforms one sword into 13, and 13 into countless swords. Upgrade points. Exclusive upgrade points for the Ancient Devil Tome. Each point can be used to advance 1 level. Yili thought this was terrifying. With the Ancient Devil Tome at level 5 now, 5 points would make it level 10. However, these weren't the upgrade points for his cultivation. Even after the Ancient Devil Tome reached the 10th level, he had only reached the 3rd level in his cultivation. Bok's novel. Yili already knew that Ghost Sword 13 styles was a skill exclusive to Swordmaster Achi. Without much thought, he integrated Ghost Sword 13 styles into Achi's body. With Ghost Sword 13 styles, Achi's overall strength would improve significantly. Would the host like to use 5 upgrade points? Yes. Upgrade points in progress. IO%, 3O%, 6O%, IO%. The Ancient Devil Tome has been upgraded to the 10th level. Yili's face lit up, and he opened the character attribute panel. Host, Yili. System, Super Synthesis System. Weapons, Dragon-Slaying Blade Divine Weapon. Heavenly Tower, Divine Weapon. Cultivation Realm, 8th Tier Evolved Being. Skills, Healing Art Support. Flame Blade Technique, Offense. Primordial Demon Slash, Offense. Ancient Devil Tome 3rd Level. Apocalypse Legion, Ada by Wawa, Hongye Yutong Swordmaster Achi Bone Maiden. After closing the character attribute panel, Yili looked at Bone Maiden. He was very pleased. After Zhao Xiao turned her into a zombie, she had devoured other zombies madly, reaching the 6th tier. Zhao Xiao had then given her to the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. What Yili hadn't expected was that Bone Maiden was still a pure maiden even now, although he didn't mind if she was a maiden or not. Yili decided that he should go to the Falling Rock Mountain range now. There were still many zombies waiting for him to synthesize there. In this wilderness, there were many treasures. Exploration teams formed by genetic warriors frequently ventured into various areas of the wilderness to search for them. It was rumored that the Falling Rock Mountain range had countless treasures, but not a single exploration team that entered had ever returned. As a result, it had become a forbidden area. Yili didn't stay in the Sky Eagle base for too long. He bid farewell to Zishan, and Ziqiong and Ling Fei seemed reluctant to see him go. He understood the meaning behind those looks. He bought 2 skill books from the Point store and gave them to Ziqiong and Ling Fei. He also told Ziqiong that people should aim high and strive to reach the top, and that she should go to Cloud Peak Academy. As for Ling Fei, in this world, nothing was perfect. Yili couldn't help but think of his only disciple Luoyu. On that starry night, Luoyu had offered herself to him out of gratitude, but he knew that he and Luoyu would meet again someday, just not right now. Yili walked leisurely toward the Falling Rock Mountain range. This was his 3rd visit to the area. Once he arrived at the Falling Rock Mountain range, the first thing Yili did was to confront the heavy sword-wielding undead clan. Next, he would synthesize zombies and see if he could find any amazing treasures. In martial arts novels, the protagonist often encountered peerless martial arts manuals and divine swords and sabers. Yili didn't believe that as a transmigrator, carrying the super synthesis system, he couldn't be the main character. Activating his swift steps, Yili's speed was astonishing. After a few hours, he arrived at the foot of the Falling Rock Mountain range. Chapter 292. Unbearable sight. This was already Yili's 3rd visit to the Falling Rock Mountain range. Upon arriving at the Falling Rock Mountain range, he encountered a vast wasteland with sporadic zombies wandering about. Yili had a plan in mind. He would first go and check on the heavy sword-wielding undead clan. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan was in the inner area, so Yili ignored the zombies in the outer region. He activated his swift steps and headed towards the inner region of the Falling Rock Mountain range. Box novel. Finally, he reached the inner region of the Falling Rock Mountain range. As soon as he entered, a group of zombies rushed toward him. Roar! Roar! This wave of zombies numbered in the hundreds, and all appeared to be Tier 5 zombies. In Yili's eyes, Tier 5 zombies were rather weak, so he extended a finger and swiftly subdued the hundreds of zombies. Opening his mental synthesis grid, he synthesized these zombies. 1 Tier 1 male zombie, 1 Tier 1 female zombie. Yili's expression remained unchanged, and he continued walking. Suddenly, he heard 2 voices entering his ears. "Stop it, honey. Hee. Hearing these nauseating sounds, Yili activated his heavenly spirit eyes to investigate. He saw 2 dark race members from the Crazy Bull clan doing something, and Yili nearly wanted to wash his eyes 1,000 times. How could he witness such an unbearable scene? "Aren't you afraid of being seen by other dark race members?" Yili asked. "Fear what? Whoever dares to see us, I'll kill them." Yili had already walked behind the 2 Crazy Bull clan members. He calmly said, "Stop your disgusting actions." As soon as these words were spoken, the 2 Crazy Bull clan members were startled. They shivered as if they were electrified. The male Crazy Bull was the first to regain his composure. He roared angrily, "Who the hell dares to disturb my good time?" This male Crazy Bull was in the 4th tier, while the female one was in the third tier. After the male crazy bull roared, he turned around and was somewhat stunned when he saw a youth with a handsome face standing before him. Then, the male crazy bull dark beast shook his head, and a cold smile appeared on his bull face. I didn't expect that a human would dare to come here, in the inner region of the Falling Rock Mountain Range. What do you think, dear? Haha, looks like we can have a good meal today. Both the male and female crazy bulls had happy smiles on their faces, as if they were about to feast on Yi Li. Yi Li chuckled to himself, thinking that even without rain, there would still be dog urine. It was truly ridiculous. Human, before I eat you, I need to ask, don't you know that the inner region of the Falling Rock Mountain Range is a forbidden area for humans? The male crazy bull looked at Yi Li with a puzzled expression. Of course I know, Yi Li nodded. Since you know, why did you dare to come here alone? The male crazy bull continued to ask. Yi Li pondered for a few seconds, then said to the male crazy bull, perhaps it's because the inner region of the Falling Rock Mountain Range doesn't pose much of a threat to me. What? The male and female crazy bulls were both stunned. They couldn't believe that Yi Li would say something like that. Darling, don't waste any more time. Let's eat him quickly, the female crazy bull said, and even drooled from the corner of her mouth. Yi Li smiled faintly as he looked at the female crazy bull. Do you want to eat me? Of course, you look so handsome. You must taste delicious. The female crazy bull licked her lips. Chapter 293. Where is the heavy sword-wielding undead clan? A smile appeared on Yi Li's handsome face, as he calmly looked at the female crazy bull. If you're about to die soon, how can you still eat me? The female crazy bull was startled by his words, but then she became furious. Human, even at this point you dare to boast? You're asking for death. With a shout, the third-tier female crazy bull moved towards Yi Li. Yi Li smiled, and in his eyes, a third-tier dark race member was as tiny as a leaf in the vast world. Box novel. Calm, he stood still as if rooted to the ground, allowing the third-tier female crazy bull to approach. When she was just inches away from Yi Li, he activated his heavenly spirit eyes. A golden light shot out from Yi Li's pupils at lightning speed. The third-tier female crazy bull couldn't react in time. Ollie! A pitiful scream echoed as the female crazy bull's body was pierced through by the golden spiritual light. My dear! The fourth-tier male crazy bull, seeing this, had his eyes turn bloodshot. Human, you've killed my mate! With those words, the fourth-tier male crazy bull rushed toward Yi Li. Yi Li looked bored, and he slightly raised his foot, kicking the male crazy bull's body. The male crazy bull was sent flying, crashing heavily into a tree and snapping it in half. Yi Li calmly walked over to the male crazy bull. He looked down at him and asked, do you know where the heavy sword-wielding undead clan is? At this moment, the male crazy bull was too absorbed in his anger to listen to Yi Li's words. His eyes were locked onto Yi Li with a fiery rage. Yi Li smiled and said, it seems I need to teach you a lesson before you'll tell the truth. With a flick of his finger, golden spiritual light wrapped around it. He then pointed his finger at the male crazy bull's thigh. Ollie! In an instant a shrill scream rang. Yi Li squatted down, looking at the male crazy bull, and said, tell me, do you know where the heavy sword-wielding undead clan is? One don't want to say it a third time. The fourth-tier male crazy bull knew that he was no match for Yi Li, and when he heard his words, his face turned pale with fear. Although his mate had been killed by the human before him, he didn't want to die. The male crazy bull, in pain and trembling, looked at Yi Li and said, if I tell you, will you spare my life? Do you think you have room to negotiate? Hurry up and speak. Don't test my patience, Yi Li replied calmly. Seeing his situation, the male crazy bull no longer hesitated. He said, go north from here and you'll find a place called the Abyssal Gorge. That's the territory of the heavy sword-wielding undead clan. Respected being, I've told you everything. Can you spare my life? Please let me go. The fourth-tier male crazy bull pleaded with a desperate look. Unfortunately, Yi Li slowly shook his head. Without saying more, he raised his finger. The male crazy bull was horrified, and didn't have a chance to beg for mercy again before Yi Li's finger struck. Before he could even let out a scream, a horrifying blood hole appeared on his forehead, and he died without closing his eyes. Chapter 294. Abyssal Gorge. The male and female crazy bulls had done nothing wrong except for crossing paths with Yi Li. Yi Li had never been a good person, but he wasn't necessarily a bad one either. Killing the male and female crazy bulls didn't elicit any emotions from him. If he had been a mere second-tier evolved being, would they have spared him? Lai released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space and headed north. During this journey, Yi Li synthesized zombies on the way, and created a 4th-tier male undead, and a 4th-tier female undead. The male crazy bull had mentioned that the territory of the heavy sword-wielding undead clan was in the Abyssal Gorge. Yi Li arrived at a large mountain. Box novel. There was a cave halfway up that emitted a continuous stream of sinister aura. Yi Li used his heavenly spirit eyes to take a look inside, and found it to be eerie and terrifying. Yi Li thought this must be the Abyssal Gorge, so without much hesitation, he led the Apocalypse Legion toward the cave. When he reached the entrance of the cave, he felt a chilling wind blowing from inside. Just as Yi Li was about to enter the cave, he heard some noises. He stopped in his tracks, silently waiting for whatever was happening. After dozens of seconds, several 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead walked out of the cave. Originally, these 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had been laughing and joking, but the moment they stepped out of the cave, their laughter ceased. A human? Zombies. Tier 5 zombies. No, Tier 6. These 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had never seen such high-level zombies before, and had no idea about the Apocalypse Legion's ranks. They rubbed their eyes, feeling as if they were seeing things, but no matter how much they rubbed, Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion were still there. These few 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead would never have thought, no matter how hard they racked their brains, that in this Abyssal Gorge, humans and zombies would actually appear. A 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead took the lead to regain his senses, and quickly shouted into the cave. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! In an instant, more than 30 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead rushed out. What are heavy sword-wielding undead? They were skeletons wielding dull heavy swords. More than 30 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead, after rushing out of the cave, were all dumbfounded. They never could have imagined that the so-called enemy would turn out to be a human and 6 zombies. Moreover, what was the level of these 6 zombies? Most importantly, how was this human controlling the zombies? These 30-plus 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead couldn't sense any aura of the dark race from Yi Li. This left them utterly baffled. When the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead led the heavy sword-wielding undead clan and zombies to the Sky Eagle base, they did not follow along, so they naturally had no knowledge of Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion. A 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead spoke coldly. Human, you must be incredibly audacious to come here. Do you even know where you are? This place isn't it the Abyssal Gorge? Yi Li said casually. Upon hearing this, the 30-plus Tier 3 heavy sword-wielding undead were all stunned. Since he knew this was the Abyssal Gorge, why did he dare to come here? Did he have some kind of backing? They couldn't fathom why Yi Li could control the zombies. And even more so, they couldn't understand why he would appear outside the Abyssal Gorge. Human, now that you know this is the Abyssal Gorge, why are you here? A 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead snapped. Chapter 295. You won't have the chance to be angry. The 30-plus 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yi Li, eager to hear his next words. Yi Li smiled faintly and after a few seconds calmly replied, Is the Abyssal Gorge really that frightening? Ha ha ha. All the 30-plus heavy sword-wielding undead burst into laughter, as if they had heard the funniest joke ever. Is it that amusing? Yi Li's face, as beautiful as jade, showed a hint of curiosity. Box novel. Human. Although we don't know how you can control these zombies, do you really think you can intrude into our Abyssal Gorge with just a few zombies like this? Exactly. It's laughable that you're still clueless even at death's door. Human. Do you know the level of our heavy sword-wielding undead clan's leader? One thing telling you is enough to scare you to death. In the eyes of these heavy sword-wielding undead, Yili was as good as dead, and they were just having some fun with him before he met his end. Hee hee. Do you think I, Yili, would be scared to death by the leader of a mere heavy sword-wielding undead clan? Yili scoffed. Hiss. The heavy sword-wielding undead couldn't help but inhale sharply. They had seen arrogance before, but never to this extent. Human, how dare you call our heavy sword-wielding undead clan leader mere? One of the third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead couldn't believe what Yili had just said. Isn't he? Yili retorted. The 30-plus third-tier dark race members became infuriated, their eyes blazing with anger. Very well. Let me tell you. The leader of our heavy sword-wielding undead clan is in the 9th tier. One of the heavy sword-wielding undead said coldly. The heavy sword-wielding undead had thought that after Yili learned the level of their leader, he would be terrified to the point of losing his wits. However, they could never have imagined that Yili would remain as calm as still water, as if he hadn't heard a word. Human you. One of the third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead roared in anger. Do you feel angry? Yili asked calmly. Before these heavy sword-wielding undead could respond, Yili continued. Never feel angry, because everything one do will make you angry for 3 days and 3 nights. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance to be angry anymore because you're about to. Yili stopped speaking. His finger had slowly risen, and a terrifying golden spiritual light coiled around it. Just as the 30-plus third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were in shock, Yili's one young finger was already unleashed. Swish, swish, swish. Dozens of wind-breaking sounds echoed, and all the 30-plus heavy sword-wielding undead were instantly shattered into pieces. The scene could be described with just a single word: gruesome. Because you're about to die, you won't have the chance to be angry. With that, Yili retracted his finger. Feeling bored, Yili led the Apocalypse Legion into the cave. Now Ada, Baiwawa, and Hongya were all 9th tier zombies, while Yutong and Swordmaster Achi were 8th tier, and Bone Maiden was 7th tier. With such terrifying power, breaking into the heavy sword-wielding undead clan was like entering an empty space. What surprised Yili, however, was that he didn't encounter a single heavy sword-wielding undead in the cave. Meeting no resistance, he and the Apocalypse Legion reached the end of the cave. At the end, there was a pitch-black abyss, resembling a black hole that could swallow you if you glanced at it. Chapter 296. A human arrives at the underground palace. Yili used his heavenly spirit eyes to investigate, and found that there were many heavy sword-wielding undead beneath this abyss. He thought that the real Abyssal Gorge was down there, and his purpose in coming to the Abyssal Gorge was to stir up some trouble. Obviously, he hadn't achieved that goal yet. Let's go down, Yili said calmly. With that, Yili leaped into the seemingly bottomless abyss. The Apocalypse Legion followed suit. Box novel. Calm after reaching the bottom, Yili looked at the building in front of him, resembling an underground palace. The entire area was shrouded in darkness, sending shivers down one's spine. A human? A voice filled with astonishment reached Yili's ears. Yili followed the voice, and saw more than a dozen third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead looking at him in disbelief. And there are zombies, high-level zombies. These more than a dozen third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were even more bewildered. They couldn't understand why they were witnessing this scene. Go and tell your leader that I, Yili, have arrived, Yili said calmly. The more than a dozen third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were taken aback. Did this human know their leader? If he didn't, he wouldn't dare to come to the Abyssal Gorge. Thinking this, the hostility of the more than a dozen third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead towards Yili lessened considerably. Their faces showed nothing but shock, as they couldn't comprehend how a human could control zombies. Alright, you wait here. I'll go report, one of the third-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said to Yili. Go ahead. Yili nodded. As an absolute powerhouse in the Falling Rock mountain range, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had a hard time letting go of their anger after the humiliation at the Sky Eagle base. Moreover, Yili possessed 2 ancient divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. If he was to obtain these weapons, his power would undoubtedly increase manyfold. Thinking back to the day when Yi Li held the dragon-slaying blade in his right hand and the heavenly tower in his left, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead couldn't help but shudder. Yi Li the Demon King was truly terrifying. To hell with the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. After escaping from the Sky Eagle base, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead came to a realization. They realized that humans and dark race members were no different. Staying alive was the supreme truth. However, in the past few days, the Tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead had been thinking about it. Although it was impossible for his heavy sword-wielding undead clan to snatch the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, there were still 2 other clans in the Falling Rock Mountain range. If they joined forces, what could Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion possibly do? While pondering on his throne, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead considered whether to share this information with the leaders of the other 2 clans. Just at that moment, a 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead rushed in. Report! The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and the other high-level skeleton undead turned their attention to the 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. What is it? The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said impatiently. Leader, a human and several zombies have arrived outside the underground palace. The human said his name is. The 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead thought for a moment before continuing. He said his name is Yi Li. What? The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and the other high-level undead couldn't help but exclaim when they heard this. Yi Li, the Demon King. Yi Li, a human and several zombies, and his name is Yi Li? Who else could it be other than the Demon King Yi Li? Chapter 297. The entire army mobilized hearing the words. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead felt as if a bolt from the blue had struck his head, and he even felt somewhat weakened all over. The Demon King Yi Li has arrived outside his palace. You should know that in the Demon King Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion, there are 3 9th-tier zombies. The high-tiering heavy sword-wielding undead in the hall were all stunned and terrified. The power that Demon King Yi Li had shown outside the Sky Eagle base that day was truly terrifying. The 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead, who came to deliver the message, was startled. He couldn't understand why their leader was so afraid. Could it be that the human was not a friend of their leader? Box novel. Calm leader, what should we do now? A 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead asked. All the high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead in the hall turned to look at the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead clenched his teeth tightly. If he had eyes, they would surely be burning with anger right now. Demon King Yi Li, how dare you come to my abyssal gorge? You truly don't know the meaning of death. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said coldly. The high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead in the hall were all shocked. The Demon King Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion had 3 9th-tier zombies. Could they withstand the attacks of Demon King Yi Li and his Apocalypse Legion? Don't panic, everyone. Surround Yi Li outside, and he'll go get a treasure. Next year today will be the anniversary of Demon King Yi Li's death. Yes, leader. The high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead in the hall became excited. They hadn't expected their leader to have a backup plan. Soon, an 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead gave the order, and the entire heavy sword-wielding undead clan mobilized and headed towards the palace's entrance. When all the high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead had left the hall, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said coldly, Demon King Yi Li, today you have brought about the destruction of my heavy sword-wielding undead clan. I will make sure to avenge this blood feud. Let's wait and see. With that, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead twisted a red gem on the armrest of his throne, and a hidden door opened. He walked into it and disappeared. In reality, there was no treasure at all. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was preparing to escape. After witnessing Yi Li's unmatched strength outside the Sky Eagle base, he knew that the heavy sword-wielding undead clan was finished today. As the saying goes, where there's life there's hope. The 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead could only protect his own life. He was a tough guy. The vast army of heavy sword-wielding undead surrounded Yi Li, and the dozen or so 3rd-tier heavy sword-wielding undead were still confused. Wasn't this human their leader's friend? Why was he surrounded? The army of heavy sword-wielding undead numbered over 7,000, originally even more, but they suffered losses in the battle outside the Sky Eagle base. If it were anyone else surrounded by so many heavy sword-wielding undead, they would probably be scared out of their wits. But Yili was different. His face was as calm as water, as if he regarded the army of heavy sword-wielding undead as nothing. Demon King Yili, I truly admire you. An 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili and said, Do you have the qualifications to admire me? Yili said indifferently. Although he and his Apocalypse Legion were much higher in level than the heavy sword-wielding undead clan, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan had a large number. It wouldn't be easy to wipe them out all at once, and he had come to the Abyssal Gorge just for fun. He would at most kill the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Chapter 298. It'll only make 3 strikes. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan was furious at these words, and they stared at Yili with anger. Yili, our leader has gone to fetch his treasure. When the leader arrives, today next year will be the anniversary of your death. An 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said, staring at Yili. Yili smiled faintly. Treasure? He really couldn't imagine what kind of extraordinary treasure they were talking about. Since you say your leader has gone to retrieve the treasure, then one will wait here. Yili said calmly. Box novel. Calm. The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili angrily and shouted. Yili, if I were you, I would cut a bloody path and escape right now. Unfortunately, you are not me. Yili said slowly. Most of the heavy sword-wielding undead clan knew about Yili's terror from the battle at the Sky Eagle base. Although Yili was extremely arrogant, they knew that he was not someone they could provoke. Now they could only wait for their leader to bring back the treasure and take Yili's life. After a while, their leader still hadn't arrived. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan began to feel a sense of unease. They couldn't understand what kind of unparalleled treasure their leader was retrieving and why he hadn't returned yet. Yili's face showed a hint of boredom as he looked at the 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and said, Could it be that the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead has run away? As soon as these words were spoken, the entire heavy sword-wielding undead clan trembled as if struck by lightning. Well, what did you say? How could our leader run away? The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili. Yili smiled again. Then why don't you tell me, where is your leader? Our leader has gone to retrieve the treasure. When the leader arrives, you will have no place to bury yourself. The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said coldly. Yili smiled once more. At this point, do you still have anything worth persisting for? It's truly pitiful. With that, Yili shook his head slowly. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan, upon hearing this, was left in shock. Some time passed, and the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead still hadn't returned. Yili felt somewhat disappointed. His earlier suspicion that the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had fled might be true. He had wanted to see what that so-called treasure was, and that's why he had waited for so long. Otherwise, if he had gone on a killing spree, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead would have surely escaped, and he wouldn't have had a chance to see the treasure. Now it seemed that there was no such treasure at all, and the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had long since escaped. Originally, I came to the Abyssal Gorge just to have some fun, but your leader has run away, and I'm quite angry about that. Yili said slowly. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan members looked at each other in silence, unable to utter a word. You all know who I am. This time, one will only make 3 strikes, and then one will leave. Yili said calmly. The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead gritted his teeth, and even though there was no flesh on his face, his anger was apparent. The proud heavy sword-wielding undead clan had never suffered such humiliation before. Yili, aren't you a bit too arrogant? The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead stared at Yili fiercely. Yili didn't say much. He retrieved the dragon-slaying blade from his system space. Holding the magical blade, he stood tall. Are you ready? I, Yili, am about to make my first strike. Yili said calmly. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan members were all shocked. They were well aware of the blade in Yili's hand, the dragon-slaying blade, one of the 10 great divine weapons. Chapter 299. The first strike and the second strike. Yili activated the third level of the ancient devil tome, and instantly, a demonic aura shrouded the area outside the palace. Even a demonic cloud appeared, sending shivers down everyone's spines. Humans had vitality, dark races had evil aura, and Yili had demonic aura. Under the suppression from the demonic aura, after the third level of the ancient devil tome was activated, the heavy sword-wielding undead were instantly filled with extreme fear. This oppressive feeling made it difficult for them to breathe. But then, Yili raised the dragon-slaying blade. The blade exuded a dark aura, and on its blade was an image of a 5-clawed blood dragon. Just looking at it felt like being in the 18th level of hell. Before the heavy sword-wielding undead clan could regain their composure, Yili's dragon-slaying blade had already descended. A cold radiance appeared first, followed by a strike like a dragon. Swish! After the dragon-slaying blade landed, a burst of dark radiance mixed with cold light struck towards the heavy sword-wielding undead clan that was directly in front of Yili. The cold light seemed to cut through space itself, causing the high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead to be shocked and quickly dodge. Finally, these high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead managed to evade this terrifying strike. However, the low-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead directly in front of Yili, no matter how hard they tried, couldn't escape this attack, even with all their might. Boom! With a loud and intense explosion, the low-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead directly in front of Yili were instantly obliterated. This single strike claimed the lives of over 100 low-tiering heavy sword-wielding undead. The high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead were horrified. They never imagined that Yili would dare to attack here. This was outside their palace. How could Yili dare to do this? They didn't know. They really didn't know. Yili's face remained as serene as ever. After a few seconds he calmly said, "Next is the second strike." The heavy sword-wielding undead clan was left in a state of shock and panic. "Demon King Yili, are you really this arrogant?" The voice of the 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was nearly a roar. Yili smiled indifferently. "I despise it when people call me arrogant, but there always seems to be someone who does. When our leader arrives, you will regret it. I swear, you will definitely regret it." The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead roared. "I will never regret it," Yili said calmly. The heavy sword-wielding undead clan members were shocked and angered by these words. They knew all too well the terror of Demon King Yili, and the fact that there were 3 9th-tier zombies in his Apocalypse Legion. "Yili, it seems you won't cry until you see your coffin. When our leader arrives, he will make sure you are utterly destroyed." The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was furious, genuinely furious. He had never been this angry from birth until now, but Yili's face remained as placid as ever. He slowly said, "Unfortunately, Yili, won't cry even when I see my coffin because I will never need a coffin." Silence, a deathly silence. "I think you should be prepared by now. Next, I will unleash the second strike." Yili was the first to break the silence. With that, just as the heavy sword-wielding undead clan hadn't yet reacted, Yili had already swung the second strike. This strike, like the first, was accompanied by a demonic aura and a cold radiance, but it also contained an endless blaze. As Yili swung this strike, he slowly said, "Flame blade technique." As the dragon-slaying blade fell, countless terrifying blades of fire spread in all directions. Chapter 300. The young calf isn't afraid of the tiger. The S-tier attack skill, Flame blade technique, not only caught the low-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead off guard, but left them with no time to react. In an instant, the fiery blades devoured hundreds of low-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead once again. The 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was infuriated beyond measure and roared, "Yili, this isn't over. Since Yili won't spare us, let's go together. We'll go all out, even if it means fighting to the death." After the 8th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead's angry shout, the heavy sword-wielding undead clan finally snapped out of their stupor. Suddenly, the heavy sword-wielding undead raised their heavy swords and rushed towards Yili. Yili shook his head inwardly. He wouldn't spare these heavy sword-wielding undead? No, he had only intended to strike 3 times. The first and second strikes had already been delivered, and now it was time for the third. As the heavy sword-wielding undead charged towards him, Yili leaped into the air with the dragon-slaying blade in hand. He enunciated each word clearly and calmly, "Primordial Demon Slash." With that, the dragon-slaying blade descended abruptly. 3,000 divine and demonic phantoms instantly surged forth, their speed reaching an unbelievable level. The power of the SSS tier attack skill, Primordial Demon Slash, was beyond imagination. Boom! A deafening explosion echoed outside the palace. This single strike claimed the lives of 500 to 600 low-level dark race creatures. The high-leveled heavy sword-wielding undead were petrified with fear. The Apocalypse Legion hadn't even made a move yet, and the consequences, they didn't dare to think about it. They really didn't dare. The heavy sword-wielding undead stopped in their tracks, their expressions filled with terror as they stared at Yili in midair. The Apocalypse Legion remained motionless, as if they hadn't seen or heard anything at all. "I always keep my word. I said 3 strikes, so there will be 3 strikes. Farewell, heavy sword-wielding undead." Yili's words resonated from midair, filled with unparalleled dominance. Then, Yili placed the Apocalypse Legion into the system space, activated his swift steps, and disappeared from his original location in a seamless, fluid motion, taking less than a second. Yili emerged from the abyssal gorge and walked slowly towards the cave's entrance, leaving the heavy sword-wielding undead standing in shock. After leaving the cave, Yili intended to find a place with a high density of zombies to replenish his forces, since he didn't know where the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had escaped to. However, to his surprise, as soon as he activated his heavenly spirit eyes, he heard the roaring sound of a helicopter. He followed the sound and spotted a helicopter hovering in the sky, seemingly searching for a place to land. Yili smiled to himself. It was clear that the people inside the helicopter were genetic warriors, and they had come to explore the inner region of the Falling Rock mountain range. Since they were here for treasure hunting, did they know about some treasure, so they came to the Falling Stone mountain range? After all, the inner area of the Falling Rock mountain range was an absolute life-forbidden area. Before long, the helicopter found a landing spot. Yili walked slowly towards the landing area of the helicopter. 6 men and women, all seemingly around 17 or 18 years old, disembarked from the helicopter. 5 of them were 2nd-tier evolved beings, and 1 teenager was a 3rd-tier evolved being. Beside these teenagers, there were 3 middle-aged men, with the strength of 5th-tier evolved beings. With such strength, they dared to enter the inner region of the Falling Stone mountain range. Apart from the young calf isn't afraid of the tiger, what else could it be? Chapter 301. The Heart of Darkness. After the 6 teenagers disembarked from the helicopter, they seemed to feel like they were in a paradise, and became somewhat carefree. Completely unaware of the terror within the inner region of the Falling Stone mountain range. "Brother Gubai, do you think we can find the Heart of Darkness this time?" A 2nd-tier evolved being looked at another handsome young man and asked. The handsome young man, Gubai, was a 3rd-tier evolved being, and had the highest cultivation level among the 6 men and women. Gubai smiled. "This wilderness is nothing. Rumor has it that the Falling Stone mountain range is still considered a forbidden zone for life. It's laughable. With our strength, finding the Heart of Darkness should be a walk in the park." Brother Gubai is right. The Gu family is an absolute powerhouse in the Sky Blue Base City. Now, with 3 Gu family members who are 5th-tier evolved beings accompanying us, finding the Heart of Darkness is incredibly simple. The 3 5th-tier evolved beings from the Gu family were naturally the 3 middle-aged men accompanying Gubai. Unbeknownst to them, Yili was watching from not far away. As an 8th-tier evolved being, avoiding their detection was child's play. "Brother Gubai, I heard that the Heart of Darkness was left behind by a dark race member of the 10th tier after his death. Although it's the heart of a dark race member, it also has a significant effect on human genetic warriors. Yeah, it's said that after consuming the Heart of Darkness, one's cultivation speed will increase, and their genetic level will also advance by 1 tier. Yi Li's hearing was extraordinary, and he naturally heard the conversation of these 6 young men and women. The Heart of Darkness? This was the first time he had heard of the Heart of Darkness in the Falling Stone Mountain Range. However, it was likely that it hadn't been discovered by anyone for many years, or he would have heard about it back when he was in the Flame Base. Sierra, what do you think? Zer, what do you think? Gubai looked at the girl beside him. She was dressed casually, had fair skin, but her face was cold, as if she had no emotions. The girl called Sierra was a 3rd-tier evolved being. She didn't answer Gubai's question, and instead furrowed her brow slightly, as if she disliked Gubai. Yi Li didn't need to think to understand that Gubai must have pursued this girl many times. But each time he was ruthlessly rejected, as evidenced by her lack of response to Gubai's question. Gubai, upon seeing that Xiaoxi didn't answer him, couldn't help but feel angry. In the Sky Blue Base City, countless women were lining up to marry him, yet this woman looked down on him. Xiaozai's family was similar in strength to the Gu family in the Sky Blue Base City, to the point where Gubai couldn't use any means. Yi Li thought that although these flowers in the greenhouse were as weak as ants, since they had come here, they should have some information about the whereabouts of the Heart of Darkness. Perhaps he could slip in and investigate. Yi Li smiled faintly. This method was indeed a good one. He walked over at a leisurely pace. Brother Gubai, should we start looking for the Heart of Darkness now? A 2nd-tier evolved being was excited, and looked at Gubai. Yes, the sooner we find it, the sooner we can return. Gubai nodded. Huh. Suddenly, a 2nd-tier evolved being girl appeared bewildered, and stared at a certain spot. The others followed her gaze, and they couldn't help but be astonished when they saw what she was looking at. They actually saw someone walking towards them slowly. Chapter 302. I'm only a 1st-tier evolved being. The 6 men and women, including 3 5th-tier evolved beings, were surprised. They could never have imagined that there would be humans here. Could this person not be a genetic warrior? A 2nd-tier evolved being said incredulously. It's impossible. If he were just an ordinary person, how could he have entered the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountain Range? He must have suppressed his own cultivation level, which is why we can't tell. Genetic warriors could easily suppress their cultivation levels, even as low as a 1st-tier evolved being. Therefore, genetic warriors usually weren't afraid of other genetic warriors who suppressed their cultivation levels. Unfortunately, how could they have known that Yi Li hadn't actually suppressed his cultivation level? It was just that they couldn't perceive it. Just as they were stunned, Yi Li arrived in front of them. Are you here to hunt treasures? Yi Li asked. Upon hearing this, the group of people came back to their senses. They looked at Yi Li, and when they saw his appearance, they were all astonished. They would rather believe that the seas would dry up, and the rocks would crumble than believe that such a handsome person existed in the world. Not only Gubai and the 2 2nd-tier teenage evolved beings, but also one of the 2nd-tier teenage evolved being girls felt somewhat self-inferior when faced with such a person. The oppressive feeling of his appearance alone was suffocating. The 3 5th-tier evolved beings were also somewhat stunned by Yi Li's appearance, but they were already in middle age, and naturally didn't feel the same way as the young ones. Only Xiaoxi, her face remained as cold as ever, as if she hadn't seen Yi Li at all. Brother, are you also here for treasure hunting too? Gubai looked at Yi Li and asked. He felt uncomfortable inside. In the Sky Blue Base City, besides his family background, his looks had made countless women infatuated with him. He had always been confident in his appearance, but when compared to Yi Li, he felt like they were a world apart. Yes, I'm here to find the Heart of Darkness, but I've been searching for a long time and still haven't found any trace of it, Yi Li said calmly. Upon hearing this, the 6 men and women were slightly stunned. They hadn't expected that Yi Li would be here to find the Heart of Darkness. This Falling Stone Mountain Range is full of treasures. Even if you can't find the Heart of Darkness, you can still find other treasures. It's just that my luck seems to be quite bad, Yi Li said with a hint of frustration. Gubai heard this, and thought that although the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountain Range wasn't a dangerous place, Yili had come here alone, and had even spoken such words. Could it be that his cultivation level was quite high? Brother, what level of evolved being are you? Gubai looked at Yili. Yili should be a few years older than him, and their cultivation levels might be similar. I'm just a first-tier evolved being, Yili said. The group of people were all a bit stunned when they heard this. They knew that Yili had suppressed his cultivation level, and they had thought that he was at least a second-tier evolved being. However, how could they have expected that Yili was only a first-tier evolved being? A first-tier evolved being who even suppressed his cultivation level? It's really ridiculous. The second-tier female evolved being sneered. Although she had been stunned by Yili's appearance earlier, in this world, strength was always more important than appearance. When Gubai heard that Yili was a first-tier evolved being, the feeling of inferiority that he had just felt instantly disappeared. The others felt the same way. Only Xiaxi remained as cold as ever. Chapter 303. The infected savage wolves. Yili was momentarily taken aback, then said, Is being a first-tier evolved being considered low? In my place, am considered a top talent. When these words were spoken, the group couldn't help but chuckle. I say, buddy, your place must be really trashy if even first-tier evolved beings are considered top talents. A second-tier evolved being mocked Yili. Yili shook his head inwardly, thinking that these guys were so clueless. Could they really believe that a first-tier evolved being could enter the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountain Range? These sheltered individuals couldn't see it. But could it be that even these 3 fifth-tier evolved beings couldn't see it either? Or were these 3 fifth-tier evolved beings also sheltered individuals? Yili thought that the Sky Blue Base City must not have experienced attacks from the dark race and zombie viruses for a long time, so they were probably unaware of the dangers outside the base city. By the way, can one join you guys? One feel it's quite dangerous to be alone, and when we find treasures, they'll be satisfied with just a small share of the benefits, Yili said. Upon hearing this, Gubai smiled and thought to himself, what use is having such a handsome appearance? He's just here to seek protection. Sure, you can join us, Gubai said, feeling quite satisfied that Yili had asked to join them. Gubai's intention in letting Yili join was simply to show off his absolute strength to him. When the time came, Yili would definitely be astonished. Thinking of this, Gubai looked even more self-satisfied. Roar! Suddenly, the roars of numerous fierce beasts rang out. Before they could react, a group of savage wolves infected by the zombie virus surrounded them. There were more than 70 of these savage wolves, all at the second-tier level. This, a second-tier evolved being exclaimed in shock. Gubai and the others were also taken aback. They had thought that there was no danger in the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountain Range. Even Xiaxi, who had always remained icy, showed a hint of surprise on her face. Yili clenched his fists, and a playful look appeared on his handsome face. He wanted to see how these sheltered individuals would deal with these savage wolves. Protect young master. With a shout, 3 fifth-tier evolved beings quickly positioned themselves in front and behind Gubai. The other members' faces turned pale. They hadn't expected the Falling Stone Mountain Range to be so dangerous. They had only just arrived, and a large group of second-tier savage wolves infected by the zombie virus had already rushed at them. With 3 fifth-tier evolved beings protecting Gubai, he was naturally safe, but what about them? They didn't have time to be too frightened, because the savage wolves were already closing in on them. The 3 fifth-tier evolved beings didn't pay any attention to the others. Their only task was to protect Gubai. Except for Gubai and Xiaxi, the others were all only second-tier evolved beings. Faced with so many savage wolves, how could they resist? Ollie! A piercing scream rang out as a second-tier evolved being met a gruesome end. What was even more horrifying was that not even a single bone of his was left behind. Soon after, another second-tier evolved being was brought down by the savage wolves. Retreat! A fifth-tier evolved being shouted loudly, then quickly opened a path and fled madly with Gubai. At this moment, apart from Xiaxi, the rest of the group had already died. Xiaxi, being a third-tier evolved being, naturally had much greater strength. As for Yili, he still had his arms folded, and the playful look remained on his handsome face. Chapter 304. Xiaozai's shock. Xiaozai's originally icy face turned pale as well. Even if she was a third-tier evolved being, it was impossible to escape from the encirclement of so many second-tier savage wolves. Yili smiled inwardly, wanting to see what choice Xiaoxi would make before she died. More than 70 savage wolves stared menacingly at Yili and Xiaoxi. Their eyes were bloodshot, and their sharp teeth glistened. Suddenly, one of the savage wolves pounced fiercely. However, the target of this pouncing wolf was not Xiaoxi but Yili. Yili calmly watched the approaching savage wolf. This savage wolf, infected by the zombie virus, appeared much more ferocious than wolves on TV. Unfortunately, as fierce as it was only at the second-tier level. It didn't know that it provoked the wrong person. Just as Yili was about to easily pierce the pouncing wolf through, he was surprised to see the wolf being blasted away by a purple aura attack. Yili was surprised. The purple aura attack that sent the wolf flying was naturally Xiaozai's attack. Purple aura was unique to S-level gene warriors. Yili looked at Xiaozai's face, which remained as cold as ever. He had never planned to let Xiaoxi die. Now that Gu Bai and the 3 fifth-tier evolved beings had escaped, and the rest of the group had died, Xiaoxi might be their only source of information about the Dark Heart. Therefore, he couldn't let Xiaoxi die. However, Yili never expected that when the savage wolf pounced on him, the usually frosty Xiaoxi would take action. Yili smiled faintly, thinking that if he were really just a first-tier evolved being, then Xiaoxi had saved him once. Roar! After the wolf was blasted away, the other wolves became furious and rushed toward Yili and Xiaoxi. However, Yili was already prepared to take action. He raised his finger, and a terrifying golden aura enveloped it. Swish! 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 The golden aura, as if from a machine gun, swept out from Yili's finger. These savage wolves, only at the second-tier level, were no match for the attack of Yili's one young finger. They fell to the ground one after another, all killed in a single blow. When Xiaoxi witnessed this scene, her pupils couldn't help but rapidly contract. Golden aura, an SSS-level gene warrior. She hadn't even had time to see it clearly, and all the wolves were already dead. Xiaozai's face, which had been cold as ice, could no longer maintain its composure. She looked at Yili, and saw that his face was calm as water, with an air of ease about him. She had thought that Yili was truly just a first-tier evolved being, but she couldn't have imagined that he was an SSS-level gene warrior. Yili looked at Xiaoxi, who was filled with astonishment and calmly spoke. "Are you surprised that I saved your life?" Xiaoxi came back to her senses at his words. She stared at Yili for several seconds with a stunned expression, before her surprised face returned to its cold and frosty state. "Who are you?" Xiaoxi asked coldly. In her eyes, a person who appeared in the Falling Stone Mountain range and pretended to be a first-tier evolved being was definitely up to something. "I am called Yili," Yili replied calmly. Clearly, Xiaoxi had never heard of Yili's name. "Why did you approach us while pretending to be a first-tier evolved being? What's your purpose?" Xiaoxi continued in a cold tone. Yili smiled faintly and asked, "Is this how you usually speak to your benefactor?" Chapter 305. The Abandoned City in the Falling Stone Mountain. Xia, she was taken aback. She hadn't realized that Yili was her savior. Her face, cold as ice, did not show any signs of gratitude. She was not well versed in social niceties. "By the way, do you happen to know the whereabouts of the Dark Heart?" Yili asked Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi snapped back to reality and looked at Yili saying, "I don't know." Yili looked into Xiaozai's eyes, and naturally knew that she was not lying. What puzzled him was how she dared to venture into the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains, without even knowing the location of the Heart of Darkness. "I thought you knew. Since you don't, then let's leave it at that," Yili said indifferently. With that, he turned and started walking away. Xiaoxi was slightly shocked. She looked at the helicopter, but found that it had already disappeared. and Gubai hadn't waited for her. For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Xiaxi watched Yi Li, who had already walked several tens of steps away, and then gritted her teeth and followed him. Yi Li stopped in his tracks, and a hint of confusion appeared on his face. "What are you following me for?" Yi Li looked at Xiaxi and asked. Xiaxi didn't know how to answer. Yi Li smiled and playfully said, "Are you thinking of offering yourself to me?" When Xiaxi heard this, her expression turned cold, and she furrowed her brow. "Even though you saved me, please refrain from saying such things." Yi Li thought that Xiaxi probably only knew how to cultivate. With her S-level genes, she was undoubtedly a genius, being a third-tier evolved being at her age. "Too bad. I'm not afraid of the dark, ghosts, or your sour expression," Yi Li said calmly. Xiaxi felt irritated by his words, but she knew how formidable Yi Li was. She could only glare at him. "If you're afraid of death, you can stay by my side." Ignoring Xiaxi's anger, Yi Li continued. Yi Li thought that he should find some zombies to synthesize now, and then see if he could find the whereabouts of the Heart of Darkness. He activated his heavenly spirit eyes to scan and found no zombies nearby, but there were many animals infected by the zombie virus. Yi Li walked while using his heavenly spirit eye to scan, with Xiaxi closely following him. Finally, Yi Li detected a place with a lot of zombies. After walking over, they found it was an abandoned city. The outskirts of the Falling Rock mountain range were filled with dilapidated wooden houses. Unexpectedly, apart from the ruined city, there was another place in the Falling Rock mountain range resembling the ruined city. Outside this abandoned city, they could already clearly see dozens of zombies wandering around. Xiaxi was from Sky Blue Base City, and she had not only seen zombies, but had also hunted them. There was not the slightest change in her expression upon seeing the zombies. All of the dozens of zombies were just low-level ordinary zombies. When they saw Yi Li and Xiaxi, they charged towards them in a frenzy. Roar! Roar! Yi Li activated his heavenly spirit eye, and dozens of golden spiritual lights burst out from his pupils. The dozens of zombies instantly lost their combat capabilities, and Yi Li opened the synthesis grid in his mind to combine these dozens of zombies. Xiaxi was surprised. She rubbed her eyes and felt like she was experiencing an illusion. She clearly remembered that there were dozens of zombies just now. How did they suddenly become one? Moreover, this one zombie seemed to have become an advanced zombie. Xiaxi looked at Yi Li in astonishment, as if she were trying to get an answer from Yi Li. Chapter 306. Do you really think I'm a Dark Race member? Naturally, Yi Li paid no attention to the astonishment on Xiaxi's face. He walked slowly toward this abandoned city. Xiaxi gritted her teeth. As the beloved daughter of the Xia family's head in the Sky Blue Base City, wherever she went in the city, she was always the center of attention. She had never experienced being treated as if she were invisible. As the saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Xiaxi had already learned about the horrors of the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains. If she wanted to survive, she had no choice but to follow Yi Li. She quickened her pace to catch up with Yi Li, and the two of them entered the ruined city. Roar! Roar! The eerie cries of the zombies sent shivers down Xiaxi's spine. Over 100 zombies were charging toward them. As a third-tier evolved being, Xiaxi knew that these were not the same as the zombies in the Sky Blue Base City's jurisdiction, which were all level 1 zombies. The zombies charging at them now were level 3 to level 4. If she wanted to escape, Xiaxi was confident that she could do so easily. However, it was impossible for her to eliminate over 100 zombies. Xiaxi glanced at Yi Li and found that his face remained calm, as if he had no reaction to danger. Could it be that his expression never changes when facing danger? Yi Li activated his heavenly spirit eyes, and the golden spiritual light began to sweep through the zombies. Ordinary zombies had no intelligence. Under the attack of the golden light, they were like live targets. He simultaneously attacked and synthesized the zombies. Within a short time, all the zombies charging at them had been synthesized by Yi Li. A Tier 1 male zombie and a Tier 1 female zombie appeared. Yili checked the other zombies in his system space, excluding the Apocalypse Legion. There was one Tier 4 male zombie, one Tier 3 male zombie, and one Tier 1 male zombie, one Tier 3 female zombie, one Tier 2 female zombie, and one Tier 1 female zombie. Xiaxi looked at the Tier 1 male and female zombies not far from her. She looked into their eyes, and found that the color of their eyes was green. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Just now, outside the ruined city, Xiaxi had a feeling that Yili had transformed dozens of zombies into a single advanced zombie. Seeing this now, she was absolutely certain. He had turned over 100 ordinary zombies into a Tier 1 male zombie and a Tier 1 female zombie. Xiaxi was secretly frightened. She knew that this was something humans could never do. The only possibility was, Yili was of the dark race, and a terrifying one at that. Yili felt a bit bored. He looked at Xiaxi and noticed that she was standing there stunned. Do you really think him of the dark race? Yili looked at Xiaxi calmly. He could easily figure out that Xiaxi must have considered him a member of the dark race, and a powerful one at that. At his words, Xiaxi's whole body shivered. Her face, once icy, no longer had any hint of frostiness as she looked at Yili with fear. She couldn't understand how Yili knew what she was thinking. Recalling when she first saw Yili, he had claimed to be a Tier 1 evolved being. Now thinking back on those words, they were terrifying beyond belief. After a moment, Xiaxi finally came to her senses. She stared at Yili in astonishment and stammered. You are indeed of the dark race. Only the dark race can. Before Xiaxi could finish her sentence, Yili interrupted her. The dark race can control zombies. But do you really think the dark race can do what I just did, making zombies stronger through synthesis? Yili looked at Xiaxi calmly and said. Chapter 307. Why don't you come and eat with me? Xiaxi was once again shocked by Yili's words. It was common knowledge that the dark race could control zombies, but she had never heard of them being able to do what Yili had just demonstrated. Yili didn't look at Xiaxi again, but instead examined the Tier 1 male and female zombies before him with a disinterested expression. After carefully probing with his heavenly spirit eyes, he realized that the number of zombies in this ruined city was absolutely enormous. Yili even suspected that all the zombies from the inner region of the Falling Stone Mountains had gathered in this ruined city. Since there were so many zombies in this ruined city, it was time to upgrade all of the Apocalypse Legion's zombies to the 9th tier. 9th tier zombies were nothing to brag about in the entire post-apocalyptic continent. Yili now knew that above the 9th tier, there were 10th tier zombies, and beyond that were the perfect form zombies. Yili had only traveled to 2 relatively small base cities and the wilderness area in this parallel world. This was just the tip of the iceberg on the post-apocalyptic continent. Without much thought, Yili released the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies from his system space. Ada by Wawa and Hongya were all 9th tier zombies now. Yutong and Swordsman all Chi were 8th tier zombies, while Bone Maiden was a 7th tier zombie. Xiaxi, upon seeing this scene, involuntarily took 3 steps back and felt as if her soul had left her. Golden-eyed zombies, red-eyed zombies, purple-eyed zombies. Xiaxi couldn't even begin to imagine that 6 high-level zombies, a total of 6 high-level zombies, had appeared right before her eyes. At this moment, Xiaxi felt as though all her strength had been drained, and she could barely stand, let alone summon the courage to escape in the face of such zombies. Are you very scared? Yili looked at Xiaxi calmly. How could Xiaxi not be scared? 6 high-tier zombies, not to mention the additional lower-leveled zombies, would terrify anyone who faced them. Yili just smiled nonchalantly. If you're scared now, let me tell you that you should never be afraid, because everything I do will make you scared for 3 days and 3 nights. Xiaxi felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Everything he did, in other words, the sudden appearance of these high-leveled zombies was Yili's doing? Xiaxi stared at Yili in shock. At this moment, a storm of fear had been stirred up in her heart. She could swear that she had never been this frightened since she was born. Yili didn't pay any more attention to Xiaxi. He had released the Apocalypse Legion and the low-leveled zombies for a reason: to attract the other zombies. After giving the order, the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies moved in different directions. Although ordinary zombies had no intelligence, when they encountered higher-level zombies, they would instinctively follow the higher-level zombies. Yili knew that he had some time to spare, so he decided to eat something first. He took out a box of food from his system space and began eating and drinking. After the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies left, Xiaxi finally let out a sigh of relief. She stared in astonishment at Yi Li, now unable to imagine his true level of terror. Gurgle. Suddenly, Xia Zai's stomach made a loud noise. Xiaxi was taken aback, and she quickly glanced at Yi Li, hoping he hadn't heard it. But unfortunately, Yi Li's hearing was incredibly sharp. He nodded slightly and looked at Xiaxi. "If you're hungry, why don't you come over and eat with me? Do you really think one would eat you?" Yi Li said as he looked at Xiaxi and spoke slowly. Chapter 308. Is this a zombie tide? Upon hearing Yi Li's words, a touch of embarrassment appeared on Xia Zai's face. However, she was extremely hungry, so she walked over to Yi Li. "Go ahead and eat," Yi Li said slowly. Xiaxi took a piece of bread from the food box and started eating. As soon as she put the bread in her mouth, her pupils widened a bit. It was because she had never tasted such delicious bread before. When you're hungry, everything tastes good. That was an old saying and an eternal truth. As a young lady from a martial family, Xiaxi had always enjoyed fine cuisine and had never experienced hunger. Xiaxi ate 3 pieces of bread in a row and drank 2 bottles of milk before finally feeling full. She stole another glance at Yi Li, but found him looking at her. Instantly, her heart skipped a beat. "By the way, what kind of base city is Sky Blue Base City?" Yi Li asked. Hearing this question, Xiaxi let out a sigh of relief. Sky Blue Base City is a medium-sized base city with a population of over 30 million. Yi Li thought about it. Annan Base City and Huangjiang Base City had populations of only a few million. With a population of over 30 million, Sky Blue Base City was definitely much stronger overall. "Do you really not belong to the dark race?" After a few seconds, Xiaxi finally gathered the courage to ask. Yi Li smiled and said, "Do you think that I could belong to a lowly race like the dark race?" Xiaxi was taken aback. A lowly race like the dark race? She didn't think Yi Li looked like a member of the dark race at all. He looked more like a human. She couldn't understand how Yi Li possessed such incredible abilities and could control zombies. But the world was full of wonders. Sky Blue Base City was just a medium-sized base city, and there were many things she hadn't heard of. Just as Xiaxi was about to say something more, she was interrupted by the roar of countless zombies. Roar! Roar! Xiaxi followed the sound and at a glance, was horrified beyond belief. From all directions, she saw an unknown number of zombies coming, like a tidal wave crashing down. She had never seen so many zombies before. This was a zombie tide. In her panic, Xiaxi quickly looked at Yi Li, only to find a faint smile on his face. He was still smiling at a time like this? Xiaxi would rather believe that the sky had fallen than believe that Yi Li could still manage to smile at such a time. Yi Li's face remained calm, but it wasn't just calm. He didn't seem afraid at all. Facing such a massive zombie tide, he could still smile. Xiaxi couldn't imagine what kind of person Yi Li was. She couldn't find words to describe him anymore. When the zombies were getting closer, Yi Li gave orders to the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies. Immediately, the Apocalypse Legion and the male and female zombies began to take action. Yi Li opened the synthesis grid in his mind, and his virtual fingers moved rapidly within it, reaching an incredible speed. How is this possible? Xiaxi thought that she had already been shocked enough earlier, but now she realized that her previous shock was nothing compared to what she was witnessing now. She actually saw that the zombies that had originally attacked were now tearing each other apart. Moreover, the 6 high-leveled zombies displayed unparalleled combat power, causing Xia Zai's pupils to widen to their largest size ever. Chapter 309. Apocalypse Legion upgrades. As Yili continued to synthesize zombies, the other zombies were no match for the ones he created, and were defeated one after another. From noon until afternoon, Yili finally completed the synthesis of all these zombies. Yutong has been upgraded to a 9th tier zombie. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining a chance to draw a random reward due to the synthesis of a 9th tier zombie. Would you like to use it? Yes, Yili replied without hesitation. The virtual pointer began spinning on the roulette wheel and stopped after a few seconds. Congratulations to the host for drawing the rapid gold finger. Yili was momentarily stunned. He wondered what the rapid gold finger was. Rapid gold finger. A skill that makes your hand's speed even more extraordinary. Yili looked at the introduction of the rapid gold finger and couldn't help but smile faintly. He thought, why didn't he get this skill earlier? This was a real golden finger. Ding! Would the host like to cultivate the rapid gold finger? Yes. Cultivation of the rapid gold finger begins. IO%, 30%, 60%, 100%. Rapid gold finger cultivation successful. Listening to the system's voice in his mind, Yili's face lit up. With the rapid gold finger, he would be able to synthesize zombies even faster in the future. Now that Yutong had become a 9th tier zombie, Swordsman All-Chi and Bone Maiden had not yet reached the 9th tier realm. Yili used the heavenly spirit eyes to investigate and found that there were an unimaginable number of zombies in this ruined city. Xiaxi looked at Yutong, who was now wearing a white princess-style dress, and remembered that Yutong had been an 8th tier red-eyed zombie just a moment ago. But now she had become a 9th tier zombie. In the less than a day since she had met Yili, Xiaxi had already lost count of how many times she had been shocked. She was so overwhelmed that she was no longer surprised. 3 days later, Yili had synthesized all the zombies of the Apocalypse Legion into 9th tier zombies. However, he had also been discovered by the dark race in the ruined city, Crazy Bull Dark Race. At this moment, Yili and Xiaxi were surrounded by more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members. These more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members were all at the 3rd tier level, and they were incredibly weak. Do you know that no human has dared to come here for at least 3 years? One 3rd tier Crazy Bull sneered at the two of them. Maybe they don't know that this is a forbidden zone for life. Just 2 insignificant genetic warriors. They really don't know the heights of the heavens and the depths of the earth. One just loved these ignorant humans. The more the better. One heard that humans taste delicious. After saying this, all the more than 30 3rd tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members burst into laughter. In their eyes, Yili and Xiaxi were already their food. The thing I hate most in my life is the laughter of the dark race. But there always seems to be dark race members laughing in front of me, Yili said slowly. When this statement came out, the more than 30 3rd tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members were stunned. They never expected Yili to say such a thing. Human, we are laughing right now. What can you do to us? One 3rd tier Crazy Bull mocked Yili. Yili smiled faintly, then said after a few seconds, do you believe that I can make you see their corpses within a second? The more than 30 3rd tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members burst into laughter, as if they had heard the funniest joke. Ha ha ha. They laughed as if they had never heard such a funny joke before. Human, it seems that you won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. Even though you're about to become our food, you dare to boast shamelessly? A carefree smile appeared on Yili's face, and he slowly said, even if I see the coffin, one won't shed a tear, because I will never need a coffin. Chapter 310. Do you believe me now? The more than 30 3rd tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members were beginning to feel angry. They couldn't understand why Yili was still so arrogant at this point. Human, you dare to remain unfazed even when facing imminent danger. Do you not realize that when we eat you later, you won't be so calm? One 3rd tier Dark Race member said coldly. By now, Xiaxi already knew how formidable Yili was, and she naturally understood that these 30+ 3rd tier Crazy Bulls were simply seeking their own doom in front of Yili. Yili, upon hearing this, gave a faint smile. Ants, They would never understand how vast the heavens were, and how broad the earth was. I've said it before, whether you believe it or not, I can make you see their corpses within 1 second. Yili said nonchalantly, looking at the speaking third-tier crazy bull. The third-tier crazy bull dark race member clenched their teeth angrily. They had encountered arrogant individuals before, but none as arrogant as this. Human, after we're done with you 111. Before this third-tier crazy bull dark race member could finish his sentence, he couldn't say another word. This was because Yi Li's one young finger had already been thrust forward, and it struck like a machine gun, with terrifying golden spiritual light moving at lightning speed. Where could more than 30 third-tier crazy bull dark race members withstand such an attack? They each had a gruesome blood hole in their foreheads. Now, there was only one of the more than 30 crazy bull dark race members left, who stared in horror at what had just happened. He hadn't finished his sentence, and so many crazy bulls were already dead? Do you believe my words now? Yili asked calmly, looking at the remaining third-tier crazy bull dark race member. The third-tier crazy bull dark race member was so terrified that he lost his composure. He had thought that Yi Li and Xiaxi were their food, but he had never imagined that Yi Li would be so terrifying. At this moment, the only thought in the mind of the third-tier crazy bull dark race member was to escape. Suddenly, the third-tier crazy bull took a step forward, moving at the fastest speed he had ever achieved in his life. He didn't want to die. He really didn't want to die. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape from the palm of Yi Li's hand. With a gentle tap of Yi Li's finger, a terrifying golden spiritual light burst forth. Ollie! The third-tier crazy bull screamed in agony as his body was pierced through by the horrifying golden spiritual light. Yi Li wondered if this ruined city was the territory of the crazy bull race. After thinking about it carefully, he had encountered 2 crazy bull dark race members, not far from this ruined city, when he first arrived in the inner circle of the falling rock mountain range. And it wasn't too far from this ruined city, but it didn't matter now. His Apocalypse Legion zombies had all been upgraded to 9th tier zombies. Suddenly, a faint smile appeared on Yi Li's face, because he already knew that killing these more than 30 unworthy flies had been detected. As for whether it was the crazy bull race, he didn't care. Yi Li, where should we go now? Xiaxi looked at Yi Li and asked cautiously. After spending this time together, Xiaxi didn't know whether Yi Li was a good person or a bad person, but she did know that he didn't harbor ill intentions toward her. Let's just play around in this ruined city for now. Something interesting is about to happen, Yi Li said lightly. Xiaxi was a bit puzzled. She didn't understand what Yi Li meant. What interesting things could happen in this ruined city? Chapter 311. 2 humans arrive in the ruined city. In the ruined city, the territory of the crazy bull dark race. In the grand hall, a majestic crazy bull sat on a throne, holding a valuable glass of red wine in his hand. Seated in the lower right position was a heavy sword-wielding undead, also holding a glass of red wine. Skeleton brother, didn't you mention something important when you came to our crazy bull tribe? Stop beating around the bush. The crazy bull spoke from his throne. He was the leader of the crazy bull dark race, a 9th tier crazy bull. Seated to the lower right was the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead who had escaped. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead pondered for a few seconds before saying, Crazy bull brother, do you know about the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower? When these words were spoken, not only the 9th tier crazy bull, but also all the high-leveled crazy bull dark race members in the grand hall were taken aback. They couldn't understand why the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was suddenly bringing up these topics. You mean the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, 2 of the 10 great divine weapons? The 9th tier crazy bull dark race member asked with some astonishment. That's right, nodded the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. Skeleton brother, why did you suddenly mention the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower? The 9th tier crazy bull asked. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead spoke coldly. A demon has appeared in the inner circle of the falling rock mountain range. A demon? The 9th tier crazy bull and the high-leveled crazy bull members in the grand hall were all bewildered. What kind of creature was this demon? Immediately, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead explained in detail everything that had happened outside the Sky Eagle base and in the Abyssal Gorge. The ninth-tier Crazy Bull and all the high-leveled Crazy Bull Dark Race members in the Grand Hall were left dumbfounded. Demon King Yili, the Apocalypse Legion, possessing two ancient divine weapons, the dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower, capable of controlling zombies and making them stronger? The Crazy Bull Dark Race members in the Grand Hall were all astonished, exchanging bewildered glances. Skeleton brother, I didn't expect you to become fond of jokes after all these years, the ninth-tier Crazy Bull chuckled. He thought it was impossible to believe what he was hearing. 3 ninth-tier zombies in the Apocalypse Legion? This joke was just too unbelievable. Upon hearing the leader's words, the high-leveled Crazy Bull Dark Race members in the Grand Hall also expressed their disbelief. Crazy Bull brother, I swear on my life that I'm not lying. Am willing to be struck down by lightning, if one speak half a word of falsehood, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead declared. At this point, he and Yili were mortal enemies. The ninth-tier Crazy Bull was taken aback. Could this be a hoax? Just then, a third-tier Crazy Bull rushed into the Grand Hall. Leader! Leader! This third-tier Crazy Bull practically tumbled and scrambled as he entered the hall. Seeing this, the ninth-tier Crazy Bull's expression turned cold, and he snapped. What's the rush? Leader, 2 humans have arrived in the ruined city, 1 man and 1 woman. The third-tier Crazy Bull exclaimed in shock. As soon as these words were spoken, not only the ninth-tier Crazy Bull, but also all the Crazy Bull Dark Race members in the Grand Hall were stunned. 2 humans had come to the ruined city? Humans who dared to come to the ruined city were typically considered food for them. Fools! Humans are our food. What are you afraid of? The ninth-tier Crazy Bull scolded. Leader, one of the humans is incredibly terrifying. He was surrounded by more than 30 Crazy Bulls, but he instantly killed them. I didn't even have time to see it clearly, the third-tier Crazy Bull said in astonishment. What? The ninth-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race members couldn't help but be even more shocked. Chapter 312. Confident ninth-tier Crazy Bull in the ruined city. 2 humans had arrived, and one of them had instantly killed more than 30 Crazy Bulls. When this news reached the ears of the high-leveled Crazy Bull members in the Grand Hall, they were astonished. They couldn't help but wonder if some formidable human experts had come to the ruined city. Can you describe the appearance of the human who made the move? The ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead suddenly asked, as if he had just realized something. That human is a male. According to human standards of beauty, he is exceptionally handsome, about 20 years old. He struck like lightning, and I saw terrifying golden spiritual light emanating from his fingers. After that, more than 30 Crazy Bulls were completely wiped out, the third-tier Crazy Bull Dark Race member explained. The high-leveled Crazy Bulls in the Grand Hall were still somewhat puzzled, and didn't understand what the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was getting at. However, as soon as they heard the description, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead leaped up from his seat in shock, exclaiming, Yes, it's him! It's him! The ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead seemed to be so terrified that his soul had left his body, and he slumped weakly back into his chair. The ninth-tier Crazy Bull was startled. After all, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was in the 9th tier, yet it was frightened like this? Skeleton brother, who is it after all? The 9th-tier Crazy Bull hurriedly asked. A few seconds later, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead slowly spoke. The Demon King. Yili. What? All the high-leveled Crazy Bull members in the Grand Hall couldn't help but be filled with shock. Demon King Yili? Among the 2 humans who had arrived in the ruined city, one of them was the Demon King Yili, who had terrified the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The same Yili who possessed the Apocalypse Legion, wielded the dragon-slaying blade and the Heavenly Tower, and was an unparalleled powerhouse. Skeleton brother, are you absolutely certain? The 9th-tier Crazy Bull asked. There's no mistake. It's definitely the Demon King Yili, the 9th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead replied with a bitter smile. When he escaped from the underground palace, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead secretly vowed to maintain his enmity with Yili throughout his life. But now, hearing that Yili had arrived in the ruined city, he was so frightened. It could be said that his fear for Yili had seeped into his bones. Ha ha ha. The ninth-tier crazy bull, on the other hand, burst into laughter as if he had never been so happy in his life. Crazy bull brother, how can you still laugh? The ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead asked in astonishment. The ninth-tier crazy bull snorted coldly. Since the demon king Yili has come to my ruined city, then the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower in his possession will be mine. The high-level dark race members in the grand hall also laughed. The dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower were among the 10 great divine weapons. If their leader obtained them, the Crazy Bull clan would undoubtedly become the ruler of the Falling Rock Mountain range. Crazy Bull brother. But the Apocalypse Legion led by the Demon King Yili. Before the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead could finish speaking, the ninth-tier Crazy Bull interrupted him. Don't say any more. In any case, I'm determined to obtain the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. The ninth-tier Crazy Bull said confidently. Everyone, follow me to find the Demon King Yili. Yes, leader. Seeing this, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead clenched his teeth. If it weren't for Yili, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Then, the ninth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead followed the Crazy Bull tribe's army and dispersed throughout various corners of the ruined city. Chapter 313. Stay here, everyone. Zombie treasure chest X6. The system's prompt appeared promptly in Yili's mind. Yili opened the zombie treasure chests with a single click. Received 300 gene points, 300 strength points, 300 speed points, and 300 defense points. Yili and Xiaxi were in a room. Yesterday, they looked for the Heart of Darkness in the ruined city. Unfortunately, his luck yesterday was not good. He didn't even see the shadow of the Heart of Darkness. Yili took out a box of food from the system space and began to eat. Seeing this, Xiaxi also came over to eat. She was no longer as afraid of Yili as yesterday. After knowing that Yili wouldn't do anything to her, she felt endlessly safe around someone like Yili. Hurry up! As long as we find the Demon King Yili, the leader will definitely reward us handsomely. Did Demon King Yili leave the ruined city? Where is he hiding? It's fine if he leaves the ruined city, but if he doesn't, the old bull, will let him know what true fear is. The voices of several Crazy Bull Dark Race members came in from the window. Yili smiled faintly, as he expected. When he killed more than 30 Crazy Bull Dark Race members yesterday, the Crazy Bull Dark Race members found out. As for how they knew that he was the Demon King Yili, Yili could figure it out even with his toes. The Tier 9 skeleton undead must be in this ruined city. Yili slowly walked out of the door, and Xiaxi hurriedly followed him. After he pushed open the door, dozens of Crazy Bulls were passing by. The dozens of Crazy Bulls were stunned and hurriedly looked over. The next moment, they were instantly scared out of their wits. In the ruined city, there were 2 humans, a man and a woman. Who else could this young man be but the Demon King Yili? Everyone stay here forever, Yili said with a faint smile. As soon as he finished speaking, a demonic light and cold light appeared in Yili's hand, and he waved his knife. Swish! Before the dozens of Crazy Bulls could even exclaim, they had already been melted into nothingness by the cold light of the dragon-slaying blade. Yili thought that it was fine if he didn't cause trouble for the Crazy Bull Dark Race, but how dare the Crazy Bull Dark Race come to him? It seemed that he would have to unleash a slaughter. Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. There was the Divine Fist Zombie, Ada, the Ironfoot Zombie, Baiwawa, the Ice Zombie, Hongya, the Petrification Zombie, Yutong, and the Ghost Sword Zombie Swordsmanship. Except for Xiaxi, they were all powerhouses. Look, isn't that Demon King Yili? That's right. It must be Demon King Yili. Let's go. Instantly, more than 70 Crazy Bulls led by the 6th-tier Crazy Bulls rushed towards Yili. More than 70 Crazy Bulls surrounded Yili and Xiaxi. Yili looked a little bored. Why did they always like to surround him? Haha. We just found you without much effort. Ha ha ha. The six-tier crazy bull laughed coldly. Demon King Yili, you must be holding the dragon-slaying blade, one of the top 10 great divine weapons, right? The zombies behind you are the Apocalypse Legion, right? The six-tier crazy bull continued. Yili smiled and said lightly, since you know, why aren't you afraid? Afraid? Ha ha ha. The sixth-tier crazy bull laughed out loud. Chapter 3:14. Today's purpose is only slaughter. Yili looked calmly at the sixth-tier crazy bull and slowly spoke. Is it really that amusing? More than amusing, it's outrageously amusing. The sixth-tier crazy bull replied arrogantly. Demon King Yili, perhaps you don't know this, but the dark race cannot control zombies with higher tiers than their own. And zombies will never attack the dark race. The sixth-tier crazy bull continued. The sixth-tier crazy bull thought that the tier 9 heavy sword-wielding undead was definitely exaggerating. When low could there be such a human in this world? Yili was not a human, nor was he a member of the dark race. He was a demon. Then, the sixth-tier crazy bull looked into the eyes of the Apocalypse Legion. He had only noticed the dragon-slaying blade just now. With one look, the sixth-tier crazy bull was dumbfounded. Purple gold eyes, ninth tier zombies? With these words, more than 70 crazy bulls were also stunned. They had only heard that purple gold eyes belonged to 9th tier zombies, but they had never seen one before. Oomph! The 6th tier crazy bull snorted coldly and stared at Yili, saying, even if your Apocalypse Legion only consists of 9th tier zombies, they won't attack us. And you, the 6th tier crazy bull looked Yili up and down and said, I can't even tell what your realm is. One can only assume you're suppressing your realm. All you rely on are the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower. But it's a pity you've encountered us. We're going to kill you now and take the dragon-slaying blade and heavenly tower. How does that sound? A mocking expression appeared on the 6th tier crazy bull's bull-like face. Have you finished speaking? Yili's face remained unchanged. Of course I have. The 6th tier crazy bull replied with a smirk. Now that you're done, you can die. Kill them all, Yili said calmly. With Yili's command, the 9th tier zombies of the Apocalypse Legion immediately rushed forward. At the last moment of his death, the 6th tier crazy bull regretted it deeply. He couldn't believe that the zombies would actually attack the dark race. Ollie, most of the more than 70 crazy bulls were only at the 3rd tier. And compared to the Apocalypse Legion, they were pitifully weak. In just an instant, more than 70 crazy bulls were slaughtered by the Apocalypse Legion. Although Xiaxi knew that the Apocalypse Legion wouldn't harm her, her fair face was still filled with shock. After all, these were 6 9th tier zombies. Yili found it rather uninteresting. Instead of waiting for the crazy bulls to come to him, he might as well take the initiative to find them. If he encountered one, he would kill one. If he encountered a pair, he would kill a pair. If he encountered countless enemies, Yili would turn this ruined city into a river of blood. Let's go find the crazy bulls, Yili said calmly. Xiaxi was startled. A human leading 6 high-level zombies to confront a tribe of the dark race? This was, if it had been before, even if Xiaxi had been beaten to death, she wouldn't have believed it. But now could she still doubt it? After she snapped out of it, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion had already walked about 10 steps away. Xiaxi quickly followed. They hadn't walked for long before Yili noticed a group consisting of dozens of crazy bulls and over 100 zombies. He no longer wanted to merge with these zombies. Today's goal was simply slaughter. Yili was just that domineering. Chapter 3:15. Surrender your lives. Yili didn't know if the dark race in this ruined city was different from the others, but he had never heard of zombies not attacking the dark race before. Perhaps this was the reason for the crazy bull's arrogance. If it were the dark race members he had encountered in the past, seeing 6 9th tier zombies would likely have scared them to death. Dozens of crazy bulls and over 100 zombies were busy searching for something. Yili slowly walked towards them. With the Apocalypse Legion, and Xiaoxi following closely behind. The crazy bulls finally discovered Yili and couldn't help but exclaim, "Brothers, catch the Demon King Yili!" Immediately, the crazy bulls and zombies rushed toward Yili. Yili's lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He raised the dragon-slaying blade high, and the demonic light and cold light on the dragon-slaying blade were fully revealed. Only the sound of knives could be heard in the air. Flame blade technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon-slaying blade slashed down heavily. Countless fire blades shot towards the crazy bulls and the zombies like a typhoon. Seeing this incoming attack, dozens of crazy bulls were terrified and tried to evade, but it was too late. The fiery blades instantly devoured dozens of crazy bulls and over 100 zombies. Yili's face showed a hint of indifference. He didn't find this method particularly enjoyable. He preferred the feeling of blades slicing through flesh. Afterward, he activated the heavenly spirit eyes to search for the whereabouts of the crazy bull tribe. A few minutes later, Yili sensed another group consisting of crazy bulls and zombies heading in their direction. Yili slung the dragon-slaying blade over his shoulder and waited silently for the crazy bulls and zombies to approach. Xiaoxi watched Yili's back. His figure wasn't particularly imposing, and he even looked somewhat slender. However, he gave her a feeling of indomitability. She couldn't understand why someone like Yili existed in this world. For a moment, Xiaoxi, who had always been icy, felt her heart racing uncontrollably. Not long after, a group of more than 50 crazy bulls and zombies appeared in front of Yili. The crazy bulls halted in their tracks, looking at Yili with astonishment. "Are you Demon King Yili?" a fifth-tier crazy bull asked. "Yes," Yili nodded. The fifth-tier crazy bull was taken aback. Although he was happy that Demon King Yili had appeared before him, he couldn't help but wonder, was this Demon King Yili so bold as to not run? Or was it that the Demon King Yili didn't take them seriously at all? Demon King Yili, hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, and I can make your death more comfortable, the fifth-tier crazy bull said coldly. As he spoke, the fifth-tier crazy bull saw the Apocalypse Legion and was momentarily stunned. 6 ninth-tier zombies? He had never seen ninth-tier zombies before, but he had heard that their eyes were purple gold. The fifth-tier crazy bull steadied his mind. After all, zombies wouldn't attack the dark race. "Yili, I'll ask you again. Will you hand over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower?" the fifth-tier crazy bull demanded. Yili smiled faintly, pondering for a few seconds before saying, "I can consider handing over the dragon-slaying blade and the heavenly tower, but you need to give up something first." "What do you want us to give up?" the fifth-tier crazy bull quickly asked. "Your lives," Yili said calmly. With that, Yili activated his swift steps and disappeared from the spot. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.